Hello everyone and welcome to the stream. This is Otaku Showboat. Today is Sunday, January 5th, 2020. I still need to get used to saying 2020. Oh boy. If you're watching the VOD on YouTube, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And if you're so inclined, head on over to twitch.tv/OtakuShowboat to follow to be notified when I go live. Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 10 a.m. to approximately 1 p.m. US Eastern Time. You can do all of the social stuff through the links below the video, including supporting Pyanodon at patreon.com/Pyanodon and myself at patreon.com/OtakuShowboat. Hello, Real Skyrim. Welcome. Today, the internet has returned to regular quality. In fact, I think slightly higher quality. I am streaming today 4,500 kilobits upload rate. I think before it was 4,000, but yeah, we're streaming. We're streaming. It's good. It's good. We're good today. Unlike every stream for the past 2 weeks ish, which has had terrible upload rates. So I'm incredibly happy today. Today we have lots of stuff to do and to discuss for the Pyanodon's playthrough. Absolutely, we have lots to discuss, and hopefully the internet will stay stable. It was stable pretty much all day yesterday, and hopefully will continue to be stable all day today. It does appear as if everyone who might have been visiting in the area has now left from the holidays and returned home. Thank the Lord. So now the internet seems to be keeping up with the normal load for this area. So let us actually get into the game. Let us get into Factorio really quickly today, because there is a lot to discuss. So, when last we left off, I was finishing up making our first logistics bots. If I'm remembering correctly, when we left off last Tuesday, before the new year, on New Year's Eve, I had gotten to the point we finished green science production and started producing robots, logistic and construction at that point. And I said that off screen I would be setting up my mall and doing that type of stuff. And I have done so. I have definitely done so. There's also been a couple of updates to the Pi Suite, none of which are currently particularly relevant, but what will be relevant is that oleochemicals changed a bit to use more lard but less nichrome, and that is perfectly fine in my books. That is perfectly fine in my books. The glycerol has been reduced a little bit as well, but that's also fine. That should also be fine. But anyway, that basically covers it. There was some nerfs to sulfur through various desulfurizator recipes, but outside of that, I did 16 saves. So yeah, there's a lot to discuss today. Oh, it feels good looking over and seeing 0 dropped frames and over 4,500 kilobits upload rate. But anyway, so yeah, base is a little bit bigger at this point, just a little bit bigger from last time. Last time we basically just ended up right around this point ish. And then I've started automating a few things. I've started automating a few things, and started setting up a couple of interesting little builds for things that I now have blueprints for that will help. And I've tapped into a few other uh, additional resources, not new resources, but resources we have at this point. I've brought a power line because there were a few resources that I needed to identify that we hadn't really identified for primary sources of. One of which was niobium. There's actually very close by sources of niobium on the map. Another was going to be phosphate rocks and salt as two additional ones, and there's sulfur mines as well scattered about the place. But in particular, all this little exploration that I have done here uh, in the map revealing has primarily been in the search for salt as well as phosphate rocks. Now, you can see that up to the north is the land of salt. North is the land of salt. We've got a number of salt patches way up here in the northwest, as well as three-ish out over on this part of the north, and then like five right in the middle here. So that's like the extent of the closest salt to us. There's also nice tin. Remember how I was saying that, oh, this little tin patch right here is like the only one nearby? Well, as it turns out, there's two more way up to the north, and there's a couple further to the south. Speaking of the south, that's where a lot of the phosphate lives. So all the multitudes of phosphate are to the south down here. So that's rather important. I've also found quite a few patches for kimberlite. There's quite a few kimberlite pipes scattered about, and also I've found mortar. I've found mortar. Uh, it's just a little bit of mortar. This will hopefully help a little bit with these tar patches. Bear in mind that these types of fluid resource nodes can only output 100 units of fluid per cycle. 100 units of fluid per cycle, and I have tested this. You can shove it uh, into a tank. It will still only fill that tank at 100 units per second, doing direct feeding. You can only get 100 per cycle into whatever pipe or tank you're filling from the mine. Anyway, also some other exploration here. Just I found a nickel and moly right next to each other, so this is a great location for making cermets. This will be necessary going into our circuit twos. So this is a really good patch for or spot for cermet, having both of those things right next to each other with even more nickel to the north. And some stuff down here. There's little markers that I've made to remind myself, like, hey, these are relatively nearby resources that would be good for making a few of the alloys. So we've got like ferrochromium out here, uh, which is right here, ferrochromium. We've got iron, niobium iron alloy as well, right here, and tin chromium alloy. Just having this chromium patch here is very useful, being close to all of this other stuff. Even a borax and coal are nearby out here, so this is a really good spot to set up some resource extraction and some processing. Now, I did also find an additional chromium, because remember that I was saying last time that this was like the only chromium patch anywhere nearby. And as it turns out, within about 3,000 units of the starting area in a big circle, there's only two patches of chromium total within a 3,000 radius of the base, and this is the other one, and it's got phosphate right next to it as well. So that's all we've got for chromium. Fortunately, chromium is one of those things that it's not as difficult to obtain as a lot of the other stuff. Um, what else? Also, I found a Pokeball on the map that it's even got the circle in the middle. It's a Pokeball. It's got yeah, it's got the button. So now my map has a Pokeball and it has a smiley face head thing. This weird creature of the night, and it has the uh the Loch Ness monster head here. Yeah. It's we've got some interesting things, formations on this map. But anyway, let's actually get into what I have built. Just a bit of a mall, a bit of a mall out here with about 1,250 total Logi bots, of which not all of them are in use right now. And I'm currently building and filling a chest for more of them. I've got a few units of rails being built, as well as like all of the stuff for rails. I've got cars now, the glorious automobiles, and you know just stuff, lots of the things. Yes, the things. This is like all of the things at Mark 1. Basically all of the things at Mark 1 that we will be needing, not all of which can currently be made. I need niobium, primarily, to make a lot of these, and some of these also need circuit 2s, but, you know, planning. Planning for future. And then down here is the tiles. I have limestone tiles. You may or may not have noticed. All of these white tiles are limestone tiles. They are like 200% movement speed, somewhere along those lines. They need ash and limestone and a bit of creosote, and that's it, really. So I've got all the limestone in to feed this. If all of these were converting the flue gas into ash fully, it would saturate this one automated factory to be producing tons. I've also got, you know, plenty of the landfill set up, just in case I might need landfill. And then down in here, these are the bio-based aromatics. So remember how I love to have bio-based aromatics? Well, this is my current build of the bio-based aromatics. These are individual units that I can just tile in a line. However many aromatics I want, I can just place this and have them on demand. Have aromatics on demand with this. I am very happy with this build. It is nice, narrow, and scalable. Speaking of scalable, I've done the same thing with acetylene. Now, there's a little bit of tweaking I could do to this acetylene build here to make it a bit more narrow, to save a little bit of space and make it a little bit more compact if scaling this even more. But this is 50 acetylene per second. It can fully feed 4 gasifiers, making acetylene, which is 50 per second at Mark 1. Yeah, and it's pretty much at ratio. It produces a bit more wood than necessary for this. So this is wood-based acetylene. So what's happening here is we've got a setup to produce carbon dioxide that doesn't need to be kickstarted or anything. It just produces carbon dioxide. It gives plenty of logs that get converted into wood. The wood gets converted 1-to-1 into coal, and of course I am just voiding the small amounts of tar and coal gas that gets produced out of this, as well as burning the few little iron oxides that come out of here. I could store them, but I don't really see too much of a point when this is a very low output of the iron oxides at the moment. I'll have better ways of getting iron oxide. There is a better way of getting iron oxide that I will be doing relatively soon, actually. When I guess when I scale my glass, because that'll be a process that will give me lots of crushed quartz. But anyway, I'm just converting 1-to-1 the coal into coke here, just because this is compact, not so much efficient. I can do red hot coke processing to get more coke per unit coal, but that's a much bigger setup, and I wanted something that I could tile a bit more easily. And then that's enough to feed all of the lime and stuff that feeds into the acetylene. So that's that build, and that is now available as a blueprint on my Discord server. So you can head over to there if you would like this blueprint. It's a lot of buildings. It's a lot of stuff. It's a big building investment, but it is something that you can just plop anywhere, give it power, and it just works. Right? Yeah, you can if you build this, if you have the buildings to build this, that's your 50 per second of acetylene for each one that you can build. And it can be roughly tiled horizontally here, or if you build it sideways, you can tile it vertically. So it does scale side to side, which is even more wonderful. You can have as much acetylene as you want, just add power, and technically add water through the water wells. But yeah, that's the wood-based acetylene that I have now set up here and can start using when doing lots more lead mining and lots more titanium mining. It will be absolutely glorious. So, what else? What else? A bit more expanded power through the wonders of natural gas production. That is something that I have done, I think, off screen. Also, the circuits have expanded, as has the copper. So I've also been trying to work on like a copper setup that I can potentially scale, but I don't think that's gonna work quite as well. Basically, what I want is something like this. Something like this with the acetylene, with the aromatics here, just, with copper. But I don't think that's gonna work quite as well. I could probably do it. It would be really long. And just shave off some of this by widening these units. And then I could have something a little bit more easily scalable. Because right now I would have to copy the whole thing and paste it way underneath, and that's just a massive use of space. There would be a lot of empty space in there. So just trying to make a better use of the space here. But I will note that this is a yellow belt in of copper, and it is precisely 16.2 plates out. Because yes, Hellmod is fully capable of handling the Pyraw ores processing recipes, including loops, just as long as you have this matrix solver enabled and you have the recipes ordered correctly. Really, you don't need it ordered correctly for the matrix solver to give you the input and output. It's it's going to look cleaner on the input-output if you have this ordered properly. But yeah, this is set to do ingredient input for 15 copper in. How does the matrix solver work? It's just a button. It's just a toggle. It adjusts the values to take into account any like geometric series you may have. For example, it takes all of that into account and does some adjustments because part of this process it will add together the G2s here. Just as an example, it'll add the G2s together to give you a value automatically on the total G2. So it just helps with solving these things just at the push of a button. This is better viewed for the grade 1 tin, I think. This is a much better example here because you see 114.3% on this particular recipe. That's because there's percentage-based chances on the outputs on some of these recipes, and there's a feedback of G110 in here. The matrix solver solves the feedbacks, the geometric series for you. And this, as an example, this is 30 tin ore in this process that goes apparently up through molten on this particular setup, and it gives 10.8 out, which I was actually comparing between this recipe block here that goes up to molten and this recipe that does hot air processing of the G4, which is a simpler process. 30 ore in is the same output of 10.8. So in case you were wondering whether or not to do hot air grade 4 processing of tin versus doing the first molten tin recipe, because you do get access to both, the G4 is the same output as with hot air processing as the molten tin processing, and you don't have to spend the borax and sand castings. So this is objectively better because it's just hot air and water versus borax and sand castings with it for the same output. So that's a thing that I was able to discover. But yeah, anyway, that copper, taking into account the multiple processes that give you G2 here, and G3 and G4, it's 16.2 in total when you put 15 ore in when going up to the first molten copper, and you are processing your low-grade rejects or your low-grade copper, excuse me, into copper plates with hot air processing. So that's good things to note. Also, I have all of the green tech now, so what's on the agenda immediately today, actually, is going to be mill science. Yes, mill science. That is our first thing on the agenda. Now, I have to think about how exactly I want to set up this mill science, because it's going to be pretty basic. It doesn't require a lot of inputs, but it does require a lot of lead. It is a lot of lead as the primary input. And I think I'm just going to have the robots doing this. And you know what? I'm probably just going to put it as part of my main grid here. Just set up a new line of stuffs. Probably stick another charging station or two around the place. The construction bots will come and fill in more of this for me. Yeah, here they come. So, the military science is going to require piercing round magazines, walls, lots of lead, and aluminium plates. Okay. The piercing magazines will require firearm magazines, steel, and lead. I'll go ahead and set that so we know that we need 0.17 for one of those. Now that's going to be... One of these is going to be capable of filling up a few. 3 of these. So 1, 2, 3. And then, of course, I need walls. Now, with walls from stone bricks, 5 per second is really high, which is why I was actually tempted to do it somewhere over here with the stone bricks. Get the stone bricks brought over to that building. And I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. I think that is actually exactly what I'm going to do. Because do remember that I have 15 per second of stuff and things of these stone bricks being produced at the moment. Now that'll be you. Let's actually not. Let's do this like here. We won't even need the input. And a construction bot will come and place that building, and we will be fine. We will be glorious. And that'll produce the things I need, so then it's just put down the building that makes the science. That is aligned. Excellent. So that'll be build science. Theoretically. Right? I hope. Put that. Oop, I apparently need to grab some more medium electric poles, which I've got plenty. Like, one of the most important things to automate as early as possible. Medium electric poles. It did take creosote, so I put additional creosote here. Eats some of my tar, but I'll just live with that. I have tapped into some of this tar that exists right here at this point. Remembering each one of these is 100 per cycle, which is per second right now. That may change as I upgrade the buildings, add modules at some point. We shall see. There's more tar up here, right nearby, actually. So yeah, there is a bit of everything on this map. I wish it was a little bit further away, but we shall see how much I am wishing that as time goes on. So I want to think about rails at this point. As well. Just, you know, thinking about rails. What can I do with rails? Where is it going to be appropriate? Do I even need to use, like, the train manager? Like, logistics train managers? Like, what's the point of that over vanilla mechanics? Why do I need that over the vanilla train mechanics? What's the point? Like, what's the point of having this mod at all, even? Because I sort of have an idea of how to do stuff with vanilla trains. Why do I need that? What situations would that be more useful? Like, at what level of scale does that become necessary? Does it become necessary at any scale? These are the questions I have as I'm learning Rails. All of the wonderful questions that I have as I'm learning Rails. Now, 0.05. 0.5. 0.1. 1. We can have up to 10 of these, but bear in mind each of these is 1 per second on the lead plates. And then this is another half each, or half for 3, and then another 1. So 1.5 plus up to 10, so that's 11.5. If we were to try to feed 10 of these to maximize the use of the piercing round magazines and the walls to build at ratio, as it were, it would be having 11 and a half. When having multiple supply outposts and multiple consumer stations for the same resource. But multiple stops for a single line. I mean, I can think of many ways to get around that. Like, why would I care? If I have multiple supply outposts, the only reason why I would have multiple supply outposts is if I've already saturated one fully, going out to various places, in which case the additional outposts would go to additional new consumer locations, right? If I've fully saturated a resource output, as in I'm sending trains from the resource output to consumers on a one-to-one basis to the consumers, and I am loading everything that I'm producing from this specific location, and I'm fully producing enough to feed those locations that it's being sent to, well, okay, I can go and I can set up a new resource production area, and then as I need more for new locations, I'll just send the trains from that new resource production to the new resource consumption areas. Like, does that sound, like, logical? Why would I want to pull evenly from multiple resource production areas? Right? That's the key there, is why would I need to do this whole concept with the logistics thingy here, the logistic train manager, or whatever the hell it's called, this thing, train supply manager. The whole idea of this is you send stuff to a depot, and then, or several depots, and then you can pull from the depots to the requester. You can provide and then request. But again, what does that ultimately serve to do? It serves to pull evenly / intentionally unevenly from a specific set of resource provider locations. Well, again, why? That's what I'm trying to understand, is why do I need to do that way? What is the benefit of doing it that way over doing it the vanilla way? Because you can do something very similar in the vanilla way. Anyway, moving from that, I will need to get this mill science to my beautiful and my wonderful science labs. Yes, that's what I need. I need to get it to my science labs. And yes, I know 4 is going to be way too much for my current lead production. That's going to change. I will need lots of lead, because I will need lots of rail, and rail uses solder. So I'm going to need lots of lead. I'm going to need to do a lead processing through silver, which is going to be a little bit insane. Getting silver plate from lead dust, which I'm trying to remember what all the outside inputs are, if there's any outside of just the yeah, I think it's just the borax and graphite in a electric arc furnace, right? Borax, graphite, sand castings. Everything else is just going to produce stone and gravel. Potentially. Stone. There's the stone. Huh. It's just stone. Alright, I can deal with that. Oh, another thing to note is that while I do have stacking and unstacking, uh, I think because I added the mod that adds additional stacking recipes after starting this map at the moment, I can't actually void stacks of gravel and stacks of the stuff that was added after starting this map. But because there was an update to a few Pi mods, I'm assuming that they ran a migration script which would have reset recipes, which should allow me to do the voiding of the stacked gravel at this point. So just to get out of that, the point is I think I can now actually do voiding of stacked gravel / stacked anything of the Pi resources. But we shall see. I need to actually test that at some point.